radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network.
All right. Good evening. Fade to Black. How you doing? Today's Wednesday, February 26, 2025. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Let's do this, man. Yeah. All right. So, in case you're wondering, last night, right before showtime, Jacques Vallée had to cancel. We've got him rescheduled. And I know the timing seemed really weird on everything, but it happened right before the show. And so therefore there wasn't any time to send out a notice or anything. And so anyway, I didn't get a chance to do it, but everything is cool. It's just one of those things that very, very rarely happens on the show. So there you go. And I should have jumped into social media and have, my team do that. And I didn't do any of that. So I apologize. All right. So let's get straight to it. I want to remind everybody about the week here on Fade to Black, because Monday night was a great show, and that was a great conversation. And Dr. Yair Yafi was with us, and we talked about what's going on right now, not only in our community, but what she has come to realize through her life of ET contact, and did a lot of physics and science and of course, channeling and entanglement. It was a great conversation. Last time we were supposed to have Jacques Vallée here. He has rescheduled, and I'll get back to everybody on that. Tonight, Joel Hynek is here. I've called the show Growing Up Hynek, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about tonight. Tomorrow night, Paul Black-Smith is with us, and we're going to talk about Eisenhower and Nixon and their ET contact experiences, one in 1954, one in 1972, and all of that tomorrow night with Paul Black-Smith. I have 5 major events coming up. I've got Rise of the Guardians, March 29th and 30th, 2025 in Sedona, Arizona. I go to the Midwest for the Contact Modalities Expo. That's May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. 2025 in Delavan, Wisconsin at Delavan Lake. Then back here for Contact in the Desert, which is May 29th through June 2nd in Palm Springs, California. Then I head south to Peru with Brian Forrester. From what I understand, we have 2 spaces left on this trip, June 17th through the 27th, 2025. So get signed up for that now. We have 2 spaces left. And this is a real life-changing paradigm shift thing for you to do. Bucket list, okay? So June 17th through the 27th, 2025. Links are below. And then I head out to Charlottesville, Virginia. I am hosting the Sci Games. That's right. The Olympics of Sci. This is going to be incredible. This is August 1st through the 3rd, 2025 in Charlottesville, Virginia. Sci Games International. The links are below for everything that I am doing. All right. Well, tonight, Joel Hynek is here. Very excited about this show. And I don't want to play this up. I'm a hype man. That's what I do. And I could just hype this show up for not only me personally, but for you. But it is an honor and a privilege to have Joel Hynek on the show tonight. And we'll be talking about what it was like growing up with J. Allen Hynek, his father, who, by the way, I started another one of his books just last night. No connection to the show, just because I'm going in for another great read. His father worked on Project Blue Book, and we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the UFO phenomenon. He says we're going to explore a flash of beauty the movie Paranormal Bigfoot, and the Barb Shupe Cloaker video. Is it real or is it a hoax? Now, this is the deal. Joel is an Academy Award winning visual effects supervisor. He grew up in Chicago, of course, son of J. Allen Hynek, and from a very early age, he experimented with rocketry and physical effects skills, and later developed his groundbreaking career in visual effects right here in Los Angeles, California. He has worked on films like Predator, What Dreams May Come, there you go, The Matrix, The Mummy 3, all of that and much more. I've got links to Joel's IMDb and Wikipedia pages below, and I would like to welcome to Fade to Black, Joel Hynek, and he's right there. Good evening, young man. How you doing?
How you doing, Jimmy? Good to see you. Good to be here.
Man, you're just a bright ray of sunshine.
Well, so are you.
You know what? Thank you for that. You know, I see. I throw you a softball pitch, and you just tossed it right back. Well done. Well done. Paul's probably listening. Okay, so I'm going to say this. I'm going to throw Paul under the bus. Can I throw Paul under the? You don't mind, do you?
Sure.
Paul said to me a couple of years ago, maybe a little longer than that. He goes, Jimmy, you know, I said, when are we going to do another show? I just love doing. I love hanging out with Paul. He goes, man, Joel is smarter and funnier than me. That's what he said. That's what he said.
Well, God bless him, but you know, I don't know if that's true.
Paul is somebody that I respect so much, and when he says things, they're always profound, and he says it with a grin. So you just take Paul at face value all the time. I do not question him. And when he says something like that about you, I'm like, well, I guess, all right, Paul, I guess you're not that funny. I guess I'll find out. But welcome to the show, seriously.
Thank you.
I actually want to start here, and I hope it's a question you've never been asked. In our UFO circles, you know, you go to a conference, and you and I have hung out at conferences in the past, but you go to a conference with the name Hynek, no big deal. You get a hall pass. Everybody knows who you are, right? They do, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Simple.
Yes.
But out here in the real world, once you step outside of the matrix and you roam around, do people pick up on your last name?
Yeah, they do. Not all the time, but some of the time they refer to me as a legend Joel Hynek, which I always think, does that mean I'm like retired? I don't know. But yeah.
I had to learn the difference of the definitions of legend and legendary. Yeah, I had somebody come up to me and go, I don't think you know what that word means, right? And then look it up, and you're like, oh, those are two different words. And one is not a compliment, if you know what I mean. It's kind of funny. But is there, I'm sure there's a sense of pride, and there has to be with that. But has it ever been a negative situation for you where, man, I can't escape this? And especially when you were a little kid, maybe, where you wanted to change your name? Oh,
well, because I'm the son of Jay Allen, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that was fun. You know, particularly, you know, when living in Evanston, everybody kind of knew the name Hynek.
Right.
You know, go to the drugstore and get something, and if the name came up, you know, oh, are you related? And they would go like that a lot, but it didn't ever bother me.
Me, I always wanted to change my name. I couldn't stand it.
Really?
I couldn't stand it. Yeah, Church. I couldn't. Now, I think it's the coolest name ever, right? Yeah. But I wanted a name like Johnson. You know, yeah. So,
well, were you afraid it was too religious or something?
Yeah, you know how kids are. They're brutal.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just absolutely brutal. Now, and then there's the other part. Were you automatically the UFO expert? Were you expected to know things?
Not when I was growing up in Evanston. Later on, like college, after that, yes, kind of was supposed to know what's going on, but actually, I kind of did know what was going on. I mean, as much as anybody could in those days, because I learned so much from my father.
And now let's go back to when you were a kid, and in the interest of transparency, I jumped into this in the Chicago area. I was born in Waukegan. Okay, I was born in Waukegan. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I was born at the Great Lakes Naval Station. Yeah, I lived at Fort Sheridan.
Cool.
Yep. Mundelein High School. I just dropped Mundelein on you. Yeah. Okay. So, anyway, when I was 8, growing up in Chicago, is when I jumped into the UFO thing, and it had a lot to do with television and the space race and other things. There was lots of cool things going on. But the other part was once you jump into the UFO world, then you get into Project Blue Book and the Air Force investigation into it, and then there's J. Allen Hynek. So I was a UFO researcher, when I was 8 years old, and it was easy and fun to do back then. Is that what you did?
Well, sort of, as my dad used to say, the innocent bystander who got shot, we're referring to himself in the Air Force, but it was just around growing up. The UFO thing had seemed kind of completely normal to us and Paul and my other siblings. But I was interested in it, and it was both frustrating and exciting all at the same time, because back in those days there was we didn't even have an answering machine, but my dad was always happy to talk to people, so the phone was always ringing, and there were reports coming in, crazy sightings, and I'd always hoped that, oh, cool, is this really, is this going to be it? Are we going to finally make contact? And so often it would be, no, this was some weather balloon, or this was a hoax. Those are the most frustrating, when there was a hoax. You get some picture that looks dynamite, but oh no, it's a chicken incubator or something. So that was what it was like. It just sort of learned by osmosis what was going on in the UFO world, until I got older, and like around 24, when I got to take part in the making of this UFO documentary, UFOs Past, Present, and Future. And they gave me a chance to be, on the crew of this film, documentary by Bob Emenegger. And let me know if I'm rambling off the subject here, but this was, related to growing up and absorbing the UFO world around me. But this was a great chance to be both a part of film and part of the UFO world.
Did you know the enormity of that film and that project, and did you know the backstory leading up to it?
I have since, yes, learned that. I didn't know it so much at the time, but
right.
Yeah, but but we did go to Holloman Air Force Base, expecting to see some cool footage or part of an a spaceship, alien spaceship, and we get to the gate and they say, "Oh, sorry, you're not allowed in here. There's no appointment." So Emanator, gets on the phone to his people, his buddies in the government, and they basically say, "Oh, the political winds have changed. This is something that the CIA had apparently set up to allow us to go see what was at Holloman Air Force Base. And then so after a lot of fussing, they finally let us in, but we just went to, it just took us to an empty hangar. That was very disappointing.
And what we know about that now, right? The backstory with the film. And certainly when the film was completed, one of the things that is announced at the beginning of the film, full cooperation with the Pentagon, full cooperation with the Department of Defense. We are in the belly of the beast, right? And that's what Bob was promised with this film was the Holloman, was the that I have talked to. I'm referring to everybody so they understand. There's I'm going to say a mythical. Let's go with mythical. Can I say mythical piece of film?
Sure.
Is it legend or legendary?
Legendary.
It is, right? It's legendary. This legendary piece of film that was shot of a craft that lands, and the leader, I'm going to say leader, E.T., steps off the craft. He's got a headdress, right? He's got flowing robes. The drawings of him are very interesting. Anyway, comes down and walks up, and all of this was shot on film. And Bob was promised this film to put into the documentary, right? I have talked to two people that have allegedly seen the footage.
Whoa.
Okay. Yeah. One of them was one of the producers on the film, and who you know, but that's beside the point. Did Bob ever get a chance to see the film? Did you see any of it?
No. Nope. I don't know if Bob did or not, actually.
Yeah, that's another, it's legendary now. Right? It's the whole story is absolutely incredible. And Bob is no longer with us. And and then we have the other rumors, and I know that you've heard them, that Bob had the footage and knew where the footage was at his house for the longest time and couldn't let it go. That's another, just rumors on the street, right? Okay, let's stay on this just for one more brief second. The film was cataloged and then just disappeared, right? Isn't that how the story goes?
I thought it, but wasn't it released on TV?
Well, only a few frames. Yeah. What is in the film is a white dot coming down. Allegedly the craft approaching Holland, but that's the only part that was ever released.
Oh, I see. You're not talking about the documentary was released, right?
Yeah, the documentary. I watched it 50 times. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you're talking about the film, the Holloman film.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Never saw it.
The question was how the Holloman film was the story that Bob eventually got was that it was cataloged, and then when they went to go get it to give to him, it was missing.
Makes sense.
So you don't know anything about that?
No.
Yeah, I'm just repeating the scuttlebutt that's on the street when it comes to that. But that film turned out to be an important documentary. It was still actually well done.
I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah. So now backing back up, you said a couple of things that were profound. Did you ever pick up the phone and take the notes of a UFO case that came in that turned out to be significant?
Can't say that I took notes, but my dad, when knew that he and I are both ham radio operators, and I was into electronics, and he knew that I had tapped the family phone line, And so he would occasionally say, "Hey, Joel, I'm going to have an interview, UFO interview. Would you please record it, the reel to reel?" So I'd be down in the basement in my room recording several of these calls, and I can't say that any of them were super profound, but they were really interesting. I mean, one was of a woman in a, she's lying in her bed, and bright light comes close to the window. It's a humming noise, and she starts to levitate off the bed. And that was pretty interesting. But aside from that, there were a few car stoppage cases. There seemed to be a lot of car stoppage cases in those days. But nothing more exciting than that. Sorry, Jimmy.
Why did that stop? Isn't that fascinating? Because you can go and read like I do. I love historical cases, and I love the black and white pragmatic side of I just like reading the cases, and case after case after case after case after case was somebody in their car out on a road, light in the sky, car stops.
Yeah.
I mean, every case started out that way.
Right.
And we never hear about that anymore. Why this change in tactics with ET?
I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with the way cars are made these days. I mean, it would take, but I can't see why, because I mean, to stop a car, you need like an intense electric field or electromagnetic field. And you'd think today with the electronics, computer drive and sensors, it's all over the place in your car, that it would be more sensitive to that kind of thing. So maybe, the aliens or whoever was causing that decided they'd gotten enough from that and have resorted to other techniques. I don't know.
Same thing with abductions.
You think
really weird. Okay, well, let's discuss that. What was your dad's take on the abduction phenomena?
Well, he was sort of late to come to the realization of that, I guess you might say. But it was I think it was the Pascagoula case that really got him interested, because he, believed that they were so sincere and clear about what happened to them that he believed that they totally believed it, and so it had an effect on him. And then when some others happened, or at least close encounters of the third kind, not necessarily abduction, but close contact with humanoids, that he came to realize that, okay, this is something that's happening and we got to figure it out. But that's was it really.
Well, he in his books, if you specifically speaking, in the report on Project Blue Book, when did that come out? 77, I think, something like that. He addresses the abduction phenomenon as at one point not buying into it, but now, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but now that there's a lack of scientific research into this, and there are some cases that were significant for him, and he felt that not enough attention was being paid to the abduction phenomenon, and he sounded angry. Now, I can't put his tone behind his words because I'm just reading the words, right? But the way that he's writing, he seemed a little angry. He seemed a little angry at the Air Force, at Condon, Blue Book being shut down, and his position in all of that. He just didn't seem happy in the end.
I I see what you're talking about. Yeah, I kind of agree. He was frustrated, particularly by the Condon report, which shut down Project Blue Book. But then after that, he realized that there was no longer, with a thumb pressing down on him to shut him up. So then he was happy for quite a while. But I think he was always frustrated by establishment science and their lack of ability to embrace something new, something possible, to keep an open mind. I mean, I know maybe I could read you a quote. Can I read you a quote? It's about
Sure.
It's called temporal provincialism, and it goes like this: there is a tendency in 20th century science to forget that there will be a 21st century science, and indeed a 30th century science, from which vantage points our knowledge of the universe may appear quite different than it does to us. We suffer perhaps from temporal provincialism, a form of arrogance that has always irritated posterity. J. Allen Hynek. So that was one of the things that frustrated him and probably made him angry. One of the stories that he told me was at an astronomical conference, and there's gathering of people in an auditorium, and someone is over by the window and says, hey, there's a UFO out here. And nobody got up to look at it. It was like, oh, that can't be. So it's not there. That's that kind of thinking really frustrated him and made him angry about scientific establishment.
And then once Blue Book got shut down, in a weird way, he's now free to fly and do his own thing, and which he did do there in Chicago with Kufos. And so, what changed in the way that he investigated and his approach to the subject after Blue Book shut down?
Well, it was free reign, and as you know, as a scientist, he felt it his duty to investigate it. And the first thing the scientist does is classify a new phenomenon. And so he came up with the classification system of daylight discs, nocturnal lights, and close encounters of the first, second, and third kind. And he had people at his side like Jacques Vallée and Bill Powers, and these guys who wholeheartedly jumped in to help investigate and come up with some answers. And I think it was Jacques Vallée really that sifted through the data, and it brought his computer chops to effect and start getting some theories, some hypotheses about the distribution of UFOs and the different types, and came up with the the notion. I'm sure you're very familiar with this, that UFOs don't just happen at night. They're actually as likely to happen in the day as they are in the night. And he was factoring in things like, when are people most able to observe something and when they are not. And when you factor that in, you come up with that this is a worldwide general phenomenon likely to happen anywhere as anywhere else or anytime.
And let's stay right there for a second, because we have close encounter of the first kind, second kind, third kind, fourth kind. And that has continued as the standard in this community since Dr. Hynek, your father, came up with those definitions. That really says a lot, doesn't it? Not only about legacy, but about how to approach the subject and the phenomenon.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first step, and gives you a framework from which to base things on and categorize them. I'm sure you may be aware of this, but my brother Paul and I have been trying to take the classification a little further and help come up with something called demonstrable evidence, and a classification that goes along with that. Have you talked to Paul about this?
I have.
Okay. Well, then maybe I shouldn't bother you
No,
with it.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead.
okay,
Go ahead.
okay. Okay, so the idea is that if you have a alien encounter, to try and bring back with you demonstratable evidence that scientists could use to further understand it, or objective evidence that you can use to support your description of the experience. So there's like three categories. There's DE1, which is just curious. It's not all that convincing, if you will. And then there's DE2, which is compelling, which is a little more evidence gathered. It's not unambiguous. I mean, it is unambiguous. And then DE3, which is convincing, where you have things like photographs, pieces of craft, things like that. And where, say, there's a clear evidence of there being a being. And Paul went further to come up with things that you might ask a being if you were actually speaking to one. Things like a very hard math problem, say one that we have not, our own mathematicians have not been able to solve. I don't know them offhand, so I don't know how you would actually, that would come to mind during an encounter. But the other thing was to maybe have a pin in your mind, some number. This is sort of speaking to the psychological or the psychic aspect of UFOs, for which it's quite significant. If this being could tell you what you're thinking, what your pin is, it's this kind of thing that he and I have been talking about. And I sort of then decided, okay, well, really what you should do is have a checklist. Like I'm a pilot, and when you go flying, you have a checklist. You go down the things, and if you had the presence of mind during a alien encounter, to bring out your checklist and start checking things off, like take a video, take a photo. Step 1, start making notes as to how far away it is, how high it is, what's its angular, displacement in the sky, things like that. And then you go down your list, and because so often when people, they're so taken aback, they're so astonished at what they're seeing that they forget to, take a picture, to make notes, that kind of thing. So,
well,
anyway,
so many times, and I understand that criticism, but so many times these instances of seeing something last for a second or two. You don't have time enough to blink, let alone pull out a camera, arm it, and fire it when you're caught up in the moment. That last for a second or two.
Well, sure.
I have seen hundreds and hundreds of things. Hundreds. I've taken pictures of one. And you know what? The one that I took it on film. It was in Monterey, and the only reason why I got that on film was because it was moving across the sky below the clouds at a pretty good clip, but it was up there for a long time, and I was taking pictures on the beach of friends. So I had the camera in my hand. I was already, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just went like this and went snap, 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 and took like 3 or 4 pictures, and then it stopped and then went up around the cloud and into the sky and was gone. But I got one clear picture out of those 4, but it was only because I had the camera in my hand. If I had to reach for the camera or do this or get into or whatever, then there would have been no picture. Wouldn't have happened. it would have been gone.
Well, as you know, there are other encounters that last much longer than that. That you actually have time to have a good look at it. And I'm talking about those situations.
Well, again, yeah, and I will say, I'm only speaking from my own experience. I have flubbed every opportunity to take a picture of things that were lasting for a long time. You're caught up in the moment. And I'm thankful that some people do get pictures and can shoot video. I've got a video here on my on my computer. I was to say laptop on my desktop of a sighting that I had with Steve Murillo that lasted about 15 seconds. That's a good long time. I jump up and yell, video, 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 pictures, pictures, pictures. I was with 30 people. This is in the middle of the day, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Nobody got a shot off. Nobody.
Wow. What? And they all had cell phones?
Yeah. I could show you the video right now. And the video is everything but the object. Because they didn't know. They couldn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess the fast.
You should have heard me yelling and screaming. God,
good for you. Good effort. Good effort, Jimmy. Good effort. Yeah.
But I totally understand that. And but with the proliferation of cell phones and how many cameras are ready to go now on this planet, it's pretty strange to me that we don't have more footage.
I think so.
We have more sightings, but and it's being talked about, but have we got the definitive from the civilian side? I should say. I can't speak for the government. I don't know what they have, but from the civilian side, you would think that we would have something more definitive, and which takes us right to your specialty, which is film, production, media, special effects. Today, hoaxed videos are what we see mostly, and that's frustrating. And it's getting so good that I think most people now, even if it was a real video, would dismiss it as being a hoax because of everything that's out there.
Yeah, you'd have to take a very good look at the footage to try and figure out if it was real or not.
How do you do that?
Well, I haven't done it too much, but of course, in examining visual effects, you just study it and figure out, if its motion is right, if its lighting matches, if the motion blur is correct, all these things, because human eye and camera don't see things the same way, and but there's all the things about the specs of a camera, like its shutter speed, its focal length, all these things that dictate what something should look like, in a photograph or a video. So you have those kind of things to tools, if you will, to examine a photograph or a video.
And without the tools, with just your eyes, being the professional that you are, what do you look for when you see a video today? And even like the Nimitz video, right? And the Go Fast video too, as well. The videos are authentic, but may not be of an ET craft. There could be other ways to have those shot. Right.
Could be something else. Doesn't mean it's alien, but most likely was a craft. I mean, it's spooky how well those automatically tracking cameras track. It looks so bizarre, and in a sense looks not like things you've seen before. But automatically tracking cameras are out there, and they do an amazing job of tracking things. And I'm sure the military has like the best in terms of that. So it's not surprising that the Tic Tac video would look like that. Particularly, and it's even creepier the way it starts to rotate without a speed change. as if it's operating under a totally different frame of reference than Earth and Earth gravity. It's spooky, and makes one doubt it, frankly. But we have to go with the chain of custody and the veracity of the or the authenticity of the pilot and the other people who corroborated the sighting. I mean, that's the other thing, is multiple witnesses and a video or photograph. If you have that, and radar and all that, it really, of course, backs it up.
Do you think the Air Force and our government and the military is sitting on evidence right now, and we're doing our best? It's like pulling teeth, but we're doing our best to get that information out. Do you think that they're sitting on the real stuff?
I kind of do, actually. I mean, going back to Project Blue Book days, the Men in Black, they were for real. They were a constant frustration for my father and his colleagues. He was forever talking about how, when I got there, the people there said, oh, well, these Men in Black came and took away the photos, or they took away the craft bit or whatever. And he tried like hell to, find out where in the government the Men in Black were coming from, and never could. So clearly there was some agency, some group somewhere, either within the government or outside it, that was like one step ahead of them. And so I would not be at all surprised if that was still, going on today, that there were some either agency in the government or outside that knows more than we do. And if it is the government, they're letting it out bit by bit. Like with the Navy, I was, kind of shocked that the Navy would actually release that footage. I mean, it kind of, if you were making up a script or a plan of action, say between the government and an alien presence, and you wanted to slowly get everyone used to the idea of aliens, it kind of would go the way it's been going. Hollywood makes a whole bunch of movies about aliens, and they get better and better, and then the government starts to release more and more, and actually actual Navy pilots are, the government is releasing their footage, when in the past, if you were a pilot and you mentioned you saw a UFO, they forget it. They'd say you were nuts. So it's all sort of following that script of, yes, the government or whoever, I guess the government, it wants to get us used to the idea that there are aliens out there, and that at some point we're going to meet them.
What do you think the job role, the role of the Men in Black is?
To gather evidence. Well, at the time, it was probably more about covering it up, getting the evidence and not letting it out at that time, because that was my dad's role at Project Blue Book. He was supposed to identify all the UFO reports, and they sort of forced him to identify things that he was not comfortable identifying. But, he stuck with it so that he would have access to the data. He was always bringing home files from Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. I mean, our guest room was totally full of files at one point.
No way. And that must have been the funnest thing to do in the world. Poking around in top secret UFO files in the guest room.
It was interesting. Yes, indeed.
Joel, I'm not letting you off that easy. What did you see?
Well, to be perfectly honest, not that much. I mean, I was off to college when. No, well, that's not true. There were a lot of files, but it was sort of like, that's my dad's business. That's his stuff. Don't mess around with it. Kind of. It wasn't a whole lot of. Here, look at this file. Oh, actually, well, there was a few times. My dad wanted my opinion about a UFO. Actually, it was about somebody had a drawing of a proposed propulsion system for a UFO that they thought, okay, this is how UFOs get around. And he showed it to me, and I was electrical engineer, physics major at the time, and I looked at it and said, Dad, this is going to be a cosmic spark fest, because the potentials, the voltage was so high that if it was in our atmosphere, it would just be a glowing mass of sparks, and probably in effect short itself out and not work, was my opinion. But I didn't really go sneaking into his files.
Man,
when he brought it up, sure, you bet, let's talk, let me see.
This is a two-parter. Was there a case for your father that changed the game for him? But the same question goes to you. Is there one case for you that changes the game?
Well, for him, I know it was the Lonnie Zamora case in Socorro,
Right.
New Mexico. I think it was the first time that someone actually, of a case he investigated, saw humanoids and a craft, and in a significantly close way. That affected him and made him, wait a second, what the heck is going on here? And even though it was a single witness case, although other people did corroborate the craft flying overhead, that was the only downside of the case, is that there weren't multiple witnesses. But it affected Lonnie Zamora so much, and it was so clear that he believed what he was seeing, that my dad said, "Okay, this happened," and particularly with the physical traces on the ground and that kind of thing. So that was it for him. Maybe you could say the same for me, but I think it was the Calvin Parker and Charlie Hickson case that got abducted and dropped back on the ground, and hearing about how they talked about it in the sheriff's office when the tape recorder was going, and they didn't know that, and they were talking about the experience. That really affected me.
Yeah, the interview that I did with Calvin, I talked to him a few times over the years, but the show that I did with him, I gotta say, very down to earth, honest, very smart guy too, by the way. He was labeled a certain way by the media and teased over the years. That was simply not the case with him. He was a very smart guy. But that was just a wonderful interview that I did with him. Just
Cool.
wonderful. And only because you have to approach this, especially with my job. But anybody that's researching this, you have to go in with an open mind. Just play it straight down the middle. That's it. You don't have to believe one way or the other. Just go in with an open mind. Let the research dictate where you fall. You know what I mean? If you just have an open mind. And when it comes to Calvin Parker, the Parker Hickson case, Pascagoula, there's way too much there that just completely supports their side of the story.
Yeah.
There's too much there. And you're right about that. That that tape of those guys talking, I mean, holy crap, they were out of their minds.
Yeah.
And I agree. Now, let's back up though. Let's go back to Socorro. Here's for me, with your father, Socorro, instantly, Lonnie had every piece of civilian and military defense department and agency all on the scene at the same time. You know what I mean? You had the state police, you had the local police, you had the FBI, you had the Air Force, all showing up at the same time. You know, either everybody knew about that craft and was tracking it, right? But how does everybody at every level have an interest in a case like that? There wasn't multiple witnesses. There wasn't any of that, right? But they were all there on the scene, investigating and taking some very, very serious notes. That right there. And then that flip side, your dad and Jacques Vallée said, I think Jacques told me, I could have this wrong a little bit, but I think Jacques was with your dad when the phone call came in. They were together when the Socorro phone call came in. And Jacques said the next day, Jay was gone, right? Had flown to New Mexico. But Blue Book your dad did everything within their power to investigate this, because he was not going to mess around. And he did everything that he could. He looked at every single angle, from the college kids with the prank to NASA lunar lander testing, you know, all of these different aspects to Socorro. And that was one of the most researched cases in all of Blue Book right there, was Socorro. And your dad could not debunk that case, could he?
No, could not. I mean, it was interesting that it was right next to White Sands, you know, where they were, you know, tested missiles and things. But I'm sure that was thoroughly investigated, that aspect. And that also might be why so many people showed up, because it was right next to the base there.
Possible. But why? Okay, so the original, if my memory is correct on this case, and it should be, Lonnie radios in. He was in the middle of a police chase, right? He was in a pursuit of somebody that was speeding or whatever. Yeah. He looks off to the left and he sees what he thinks is a car crashed, right? Out in, it's a white. And so he peels off the road, quits the car chase, calls in and says he's got a car flipped over out in the desert and he's checking it out. It went from that to the FBI, the Air Force, the state police, right? Everybody on the scene. So what was the interest in that radio traffic to have everybody? It's the middle of the desert, man. You know, it's the middle of the desert. Have you been to Socorro?
I've been to White Sands, but so yeah.
What is out there? What is out?
Not much. No, not much.
Nothing.
Yeah,
nothing's out there.
Yeah, I think he said he thought it was one of his buddies' dynamite shacks blowing up, which is one of the things that he thought was going on. Yeah, and the fact that then where does he go right after? He goes to church right after that encounter. And,
you think? Yeah, absolutely you do.
Yeah, right. I mean, yeah, if you're a religious person, that's what you would do for sure.
Now, before we head to a break, do you believe that we are being visited from an advanced civilization not of this earth today?
I think we're being visited by something from an unseen world, an unseen place. I don't know if there's evidence that it's not near Earth, that it's from outer space. I think it's something meta-terrestrial.
Interdimensional?
Interdimensional or under the ocean, but frankly, I think it's more interdimensional or like a projection coming from another world, another space, another universe, really.
And I would agree with you. I think that's a very interesting observation, which correlates to what I have experienced and witnessed myself. But why the change? when you go back to Lonnie Zamora in that case, or you look at Roswell, or you look at Betty and Barney Hill, even look at Rendlesham Forest, right? And you look at these different, where it's a physical craft. It's a physical craft. It's not an interdimensional, but things have changed generationally, where today we're looking at more of a parallel world, interdimensional, multiverse, type of situation. So are we talking about two different species, two different cultures, two different civilizations?
I think I don't know. I don't know if it really has changed, because we're going way back, to the 60s. They were described as something that seemed to have earthly mass, earthly physics, and then sort of transitioned to a massless state where it is as if you had control over gravity, or you had the ability to bend space. Your craft and you in it would be instantly accelerated. You would not even feel the G-force, which is why people always say, any occupant would be dead. But if you have the ability to warp space or affect gravity on your craft and everything in it, you're just going to be whizzed along and you won't even feel the G-force. So it's possible, if you accept that hypothesis, that yes, you have control over gravity and can warp space, then a craft could be physical and then act as if it wasn't. I mean, that explains part of it. It doesn't explain why craft appear to be here, disappear, reappear here, disappear, reappear there. That's something different. So maybe that's what you're talking about. How it is.
No, everything is on the table now. What I appreciate with humanity is our ability to understand these very complex subjects. We didn't think that way 100 years ago. We didn't have a frame of reference, right, to think about that. Today, all you have to do is watch a movie or a TV series, and they all involve some subliminal, faster than light, wormhole, interdimensional aspect
portals
to transportation.
Yeah, that's. I mean, that's good that we're at least opening our minds to that. I mean, I guess in the old days it would have been some kind of religious miracle that something appeared.
I was gonna bring that up earlier.
So,
I was gonna bring that only because today, here, Joel, it's you and I talking about this wonderful subject and the possible ways that this can be happening to our experience, right? Okay, how cool is that? Except they were talking about this shit 5,000 years ago, man. The same thing, man. The same thing. It's you talk about Christ on the cross and angels and knowledge from the stars and every whatever. Pull up any story in the Bible. Look at the way the Egyptians dealt with the afterlife and everything. It just seems like. And it's not just that, man. It's Mayans. It's the indigenous cultures of North America, pagan stuff. It was all the same. Leprechauns.
yeah,
Leprechauns are little green men.
yeah, that's right. We interpret things in the cultural zeitgeist that we're in at the time.
It's fascinating to me. It's like. And here's before we take a break, it's okay to believe in angels and somebody that lives in the stars that created everything. But if you saw a UFO, you're crazy. Yeah, it's like you can't have it right. It's fascinating to me.
Right. Can't have it both ways.
Yeah. You can go to church on Sunday, drop money in that donation basket and talk to your invisible God. But if you go to a UFO conference on the same day, you're crazy.
Yeah.
It's just the same conversation going on. The very same conversation.
I mean, thank God, though, it is shifting gradually. You know, UFOs are more, I mean, I remember it would be so weird if someone was actually delivering on the news a UFO report, you know, but they would be doing it in some kind of mocking fashion. But not anymore. Now it's okay to express a UFO report on TV.
Do you remember? I know you do. I'm trying to think of his name. Who was the little Martian dude on the Flintstones with the green helmet?
Oh,
what was his name?
God, I don't know.
You remember he would hang out with Fred Flintstone. He was a Martian. Kazam.
Well, this is one for ChatGPT, I think.
Oh man, it'll pop up here in the chat. Hold on for a second. Flintstones, Gazoo, the great Gazoo.
Gazoo, all right.
Yeah, the great Gazoo. And here that was being pumped into our little 5-year-old fragile minds, right? And the suggestion of that. And it's just so funny how the religious aspects of this, or going to I brought up leprechauns, that you have this part of pop culture and the side of religion where they clash when they're actually talking about the exact same things, and one group is crazy and one group isn't. Fascinating.
It is. Yeah.
Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, the one and only Joel Hynek. When we come back, we're going to talk about the TV show Project Blue Book. Yeah, what does he think about that? We'll do that and much more. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Stay with us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get your alerts and access to over 2,000 videos. Click that subscribe button right now. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and get the Fade to Black official podcast. 2,000 episodes, all of them commercial free for just $2 a month. Watch Into the Vortex on Gaia TV. It's Fade to Black for the screen. Simple to do. Go to Gaia.com, search Jimmy Church, or click on the link below. Follow Fade to Black on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Get all of the show updates every single day. It's now called X, but who cares? How you doing? Jimmy Church here. Special announcement. Get your Fade to Black t-shirts. That's right. Help support the show. Help support everything that we do over here. We've got 2 t-shirts. We've got 2 ways to get them. Get your Fade to Black t-shirt today. Go Backley Tappy. Go to jimmychurchradio.com and become a Fadernaut. Get a membership. That's right. Everything is commercial free. You have access to downloads, and you get to call yourself a Fadernaut. Today we're headed to Bolivia, Tiwanaku, Peru, and of course, Pumapunku. Brian, exciting. Thank you so much for everything, my friend.
Always an honor. Right behind us is the sacred river of the Inca that goes past Machu Picchu. So we're going to be driving up to its source at 15,000 feet above sea level. and then down to Lake Titicaca.
So today we hit 15,000 feet.
Yes.
Crazy. And you can do it with us. All you have to do is go to hiddenincatours.com. Simple. We've got 2 tours coming up next year, one in June for the summer solstice,
That's
right? And then another one right here in November. So hiddenincatours.com. Come and hang out with Brian and I and his amazing team.
Right on.
River Moon Coffee, makers of the Fade to Black blend. Truly the best coffee on planet Earth. Just visit rivermoonwellness.com or their Amazon store. It's all simple to do. You can check out the Fade to Black blend, the Game Changer blend, or any of their Black Moon Wellness products. It's the only coffee I drink. It is the best, and it's Doc. Again, rivermoonwellness.com. All right. Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Joel Hynek is with us. I just watched Joel get up. He was seated, and then he got up and just walked away. So that was interesting. So, but here's the deal. Academy Award-winning special effects master here in Hollywood, but also the son of J. Allen Hynek. And tonight, titling the show, Growing Up Hynek, for me, the importance of J. Allen Hynek, his work, of course, Project Blue Book and everything is one thing, but for me, it is reading Dr. Hynek's books afterwards, knowing about his career and everything that he had gone through. To me, very important in my journey in doing what I do here on Fade to Black in my research. I have done thousands of shows, thousands of interviews, and I can't think of a time interviewing somebody where J. Allen Hynek's name hasn't come up, because it's that important for all of us when we go through this journey that we're on. Will always pull us back and lead us to Project Blue Book, and with that, the TV series Joel comes out, and I was very excited. And I remember watching the first episode, and I sat back and I started taking notes, because I was a little surprised, or maybe a lot surprised. Suddenly I felt that I needed to pick the show apart. That was on the first episode, and I was critical of the show. And then I watched the second episode, and then I went, wait a minute. There's another reason for the show. So talk me through that. There was a lot of creative license, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was. And, as you know, my brother Paul and I were technical consultants on the show. And we were very concerned that they would portray, our family properly. And so, we were aware that they were taking some license, but we called it authentic, but not necessarily accurate. It captured the spirit and the crux of it, in effect, and the fact that they, at the end of each episode, then showed, the real case that it was based on, sort of, in effect, gave them the license to do what they wanted. So we were fine with it.
the show in the end was a lot of fun. I'm going to say that it was a different approach to it, where there was because we historically we understand the facts of the case so well, and then you see it there, and is tongue in cheek the right way to put it? You know what I mean? Where there was just not is comedy the right word? Lightness. There was a lightness to the show. Am I framing it correctly? Well, for instance, well, hold on. Your mom. I remember, okay, I called up Paul. And I go, in fact, I don't even want to say what I said to Paul, but it was WTF, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, Jimmy, I know exactly where you're going to go with this. I said, well, what? Okay, so let's talk about your mom, Mimi, and the way that she was portrayed in the show. What did the family think about that? And whose idea was it?
God, I have no idea whose idea. Oh, I assume you're talking about the encounter she had with the Russian spy lady.
Oh,
is that what you're talking about? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But I noticed, at first, they were portraying her as a, typical homebody housewife that couldn't do anything. But we complained about that, and so they changed it and made her, a stronger character, and one that knew how to build a bomb shelter, for instance, and then that whole thing. But yeah, that sort of caught us off guard. How they portrayed her that way. I mean, my parents were, university folk, and they were fairly liberal in their thinking about, sexual mores. But my mom, as far as I know, was definitely not a lesbian or bisexual. So that was a bit shocking to see your TV mom carrying on like that. But
what do you think she would have thought of that?
Oh, I think she would have had a good chuckle. Frankly, I think she would have thought that was funny. I
asked everybody that knew your mom about that, and they all said the same thing.
Oh yeah,
she'd be okay with it.
Yeah. Sort of somehow that reminds me just of a little story during my brother's wedding, my older brother Scott's wedding, when his wife's mother was sort of flirting and carrying on, making advances to my dad, and they're all kind of a little drunk, and she wants him to drive her home, and I'm looking at my mom like, what's going on here? And she says, oh, let your father have some fun. And so he drives home. I have no idea what happened, but and I don't necessarily think she meant fun in the ultimate
sexual.
Yeah. I think but that was her.
Well, she was definitely portrayed as cool in the series. No, I'm not being cavalier. Your mom was portrayed as being very cool, but then we have the entire fantastical sides of this. Your dad encountering ET bodies in a German secret laboratory underground, ET in tanks, big glass tanks, your father being shot down by a flying saucer, and things like that, where it's just taking things to the extreme. Is that okay for the public to see? And I understand you guys did the disclaimer at the end of each episode, but perception is half of it, isn't it?
Yes. And I mean, they were just trying to make the show as entertaining as they could, and sort of bank on, folklore, really, at UFO folklore. But the one that really got me was when Werner von Braun suddenly has developed teleportation. And I thought, what? That's, going too far. And fortunately, the actor playing Werner von Braun was an asshole, apparently, and they all hated him. And so they were very happy to sort of just get him off the show, and they never had to go to teleportation again.
Oh, inside poop. I like that. I like that. I like that. There's another part, though. It was like these half-truths were woven into the show. And one of them was the frustration that the staff at Blue Book had with the government and the way things were being turned into falsehoods for the public. That part I felt was pretty accurate in the TV show.
You mean the way the government was trying to cover up things, or
yes.
yes. Yeah, that was. Yeah, I think they got that right. But they didn't get me right. The little character of Joel, I was not this little guy hiding in the closet.
Tell us about that.
Okay.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. I mean it's got to feel pretty good to have yourself portrayed in a TV show, but you're never going to be happy with it. And it's certainly that was the case with you.
Yeah, it was. I was not that little wimpy guy. No. And actually, if one was going to try and be accurate, age-wise, it really should have been my brother Scott who was in there, because he would have, at that time period, he would have been the one that was that age. But anyway, I think they just put me in there because Paul and I were, consultants on the show, and just wanted to make it more fun for us. But
why do you think staying with this with the storyline in the TV show versus real life, why did your dad stick it out? He stuck it out for a long time, and I think 1948, 49 was, when he first started to get involved with the Air Force, all the way to 1969. That's a pretty good chunk of time. Why did he stick it out when tool, is that the word I want to use? They were using his professional pedigree to mislead the public.
Yeah, but he was using them also. And he would, more than once, he would draw a parallel between himself and Tycho Brahe. Tycho Brahe was this 15th century astronomer who was very good at gathering data at how the planets moved across the sky, but he had no idea what it was or what was going on. And it wasn't until Johann Kepler came along to figure out the laws of planetary motion based on Tycho Brahe's data. So my dad, mystified as to what the UFO phenomenon is, likened himself to Tycho Brahe and realizing the importance of gathering the data. So that's why he stuck it out. I mean, he was, as an astronomer, he was in a really, establishment astronomer, if you will, in a very difficult spot, because he had, Northwestern University that wanted nothing to do with UFOs. They said, you cannot, even use our stationery when you write a letter. And then he had the UFO community on the other side saying, come on, open up, let us know what's happening. Come on, don't hide it. And like guys like James McDonald giving my dad a hard time. And then there was the Air Force that was, saying, stay on the line, follow the line here, Hynek. And so that frustrated him a lot. And I remember one time driving up with him to our cabin in Canada, and I was in the, right seat, and he's sort of fudging with his hair, and I can see he's all, something's bugging him. I said, Dad, what's going on? And he says, well, it's James McDonald. He wants me to speak what I know. But I can't. So
Let's stay right there for a second. Let's stay right there. This is a very, very important point that you bring up. James McDonald, one of the true professionals in what he did, atmospheric physics, amongst other things, but got his interest into the UFO phenomenon, and he, to his last breath, he was so frustrated with the government and the way that they were dealing with him and the subject in general, and he really wanted professionals and the people that were around him to give up what they knew, and that don't play the side of the government here and national security and other things. No, this is too important of a subject. And James was very, very, very vocal about this. And he frustrated Washington to no end. And he really wanted your dad's support. What did your dad, do you feel that your dad knew the ultimate secrets in this subject? And was James aware of that, James McDonald?
Oh, I think my dad, I would say, well, he knew the phenomenon was intelligently guided by some intelligence, but he really didn't know what it was. I mean, all he could say was that there's something seriously going on here. This is not crazy. This is a real phenomenon. It must be studied, and it's intelligently guided. So that's what he would say, or could say. Or I guess what James McDonald wanted him to say, but he felt that he couldn't do that, and that's kind of why he had, thank God, had his colleagues of what they called the Invisible College, of other scientists, professors who felt the same way he did, that this is a subject needs to be studied, but they were all afraid to. Well, most of them were afraid to go public, back in those days with it. And I don't think he ever, I guess wasn't until the end of Project Blue Book where he could speak his mind that James McDonald would have been satisfied.
Yeah, that is true. There was when your father writes about the Invisible College, it again, the way that he did it, I always felt that he went up to a certain point and then stopped and wouldn't cross the line. And I think that's what McDonald wanted your dad to do, was to, be one of the first in his position to cross the line. And your dad, in his own frustration and his anger about the way science and the government was dealing with the subject of UFOs, but even then, when he wrote about the Invisible College, he still only went up to a certain point. Your father never crossed the line.
Yeah, not until later. Yes, but during the time of his frustration with James McDonald, he was not. He was sitting on a fence, was not crossing that line.
How do you think, with the vastness of the universe, the way we understand it today, your dad being an astronomer, all the way through until really until the Hubble telescope, really honest, until the deep field stuff was brought out, we didn't really truly understand the size of everything until recently. This is new. This is new knowledge from 1995 forward. When we found the first exoplanet, right? This is recent history. When now, with the vastness of all that there is and the amount of galaxies and planets, how do you think that space travel happens like that? How does interstellar travel happen? It's certainly not the speed of light. It's the speed of now. How are they achieving it?
I have no idea.
I know you thought about it.
Well,
I know you.
Yeah,
thought
I mean,
about it.
well, presumably there is a way to create a wormhole and come on through, or I know my dad thought, okay, there's three possibilities, or there's three ways of looking at it. One is time travel, which he said, forget it, you can't do it, it's just impossible. Extraterrestrial hardware, nuts and bolts, coming, physically through space to get here. He just thought the amount of energy required to do that in any kind of reasonable time frame would just be impossible. So that's why he then thought, okay, what does that leave? That leaves metaterrestrial, that there's, something is able to transition from a different dimension into our dimension, or come from an unseen world, not necessarily even from another dimension, but somehow appear and then disappear, as almost, maybe it's a cloaking, maybe it can cloak itself and make itself disappear and at will. I know my brother Scott reminded me that my dad used to say that at some point when we understand UFOs, it'll be something that's as commonplace as our discovery that there were dinosaurs. It's will be something that some physical phenomena that we just had no idea about. But anyway, so getting back to what you were saying there, what do I think is that it must be a metaterrestrial thing, something coming from an unseen world. But my dad's second point about it being hardware, he assumed that you could not get this incredible amount of energy. But this was before we even knew about dark energy or dark matter, which does, we don't know what those things are. And the fact that you can get, in effect, energy from space that's basically what dark energy is. It's propelling the universe to expand at an accelerating rate. So there's stuff to be learned there. Maybe it is possible to achieve these huge energy sources that would allow you to accelerate to near the speed of light and then slow down, which would, if someone was willing to take some time to get here, you could actually then do it. Or you could send a probe. You could send your AI robot, years ahead to check us out. So,
yeah, that makes sense too. I think that's part of it. With what we know today, the way that I understand it, and I'm not a physicist, I just play one on TV, Joel, and I do it pretty effectively sometimes, is that we now know that just the process of the creation of a star creates planets. And so now we understand that probably every single star in the universe, every one, has a planet. Now, it's a numbers game. We're talking an amount of planets that we cannot wrap our head around. It is a ginormous, infinitely big number. It's truly infinite. The universe has expanded out faster than the speed of light and is dropping off the edge of we don't even know what has expanded out past what we can see. That's a lot. So when I say infinite, I think infinite's a fair number. But anyway, that's a lot of life. Even if you take a small percentage of that, you're still talking about trillions upon trillions upon trillions of life forms and planets. That's what you're talking. You're talking about a huge. So anything is possible about what's visiting this planet. Robotic probes, different propulsion systems, different. But here is the trippy thing. With all of the discussions that we have heard, it's always a small craft with a couple of tiny seats. You don't hear about a bedroom. You don't hear about the kitchen area right? You don't hear about entertainment. How about a ping pong table? Something, but no, it's always just a couple of little seats, right? So they
Well,
are not, but they're not traveling the way that we think. They're not sitting in a little seat like that for 10,000 years.
Yeah, right. No, they're
No.
in some hibernation chamber or something like that.
They're sitting in that little seat for a couple of seconds.
Yeah, if they have that.
That's my take.
Wormhole ability. Yeah.
Don't know.
Fascinating world out there that we just don't understand completely. It's
what do you think ET would say to us? In that, I love what you said earlier. Some of the questions we would ask, right? What, a math question. Mine wouldn't be math. No.
What would yours be?
Why the hell do you care about us?
Yeah, right.
I'm being serious.
Yeah.
There is some existential aspect to this that we don't understand. And, okay, so where do you come from? Okay, that's fundamental. All right, that's trivial. Get to a non-trivial question. Like, why the hell do you care about us? Because we can't travel to you. So we are way backwards on the evolutionary scale. So why do you care? I think that's what I would ask.
That's a good question. I would ask that too. I know my brother Paul thinks nobody would care, but look at us. From a technical progress point of view, we're going by leaps and bounds right now. And, I guess everybody thinks that, okay, when the atom bomb went off, it sent something across the universe or through subspace or whatever that alerted nearby civilizations that we were on this road. And maybe they're keeping tabs on us to make sure we don't destroy the universe
it's a beautiful planet. Okay.
It sure is. It's pretty unique, really.
Yeah, it's a unique situation. I absolutely would understand that fascination. Great place to visit, great place to vacation. But I think that the second non-trivial, big question, the biggest, is how did you guys survive? How did you guys survive? How did you guys work through it? You know that they went through the same evolutionary bullshit that we're going through.
You would think.
Yeah. So how did you do it? We need that. We don't need the cure for cancer. We don't need cure for climate change and melting ice. No.
Well, we do, but we're probably gonna figure that one out. Yeah.
How did you guys survive? And it's not the other stuff is like logistical things, surviving another pandemic or surviving an asteroid hit or some kind of cosmic, thing or natural disasters. Okay. No. How did you not kill yourselves?
Well,
I think
that's a good one. I'm just reading today that some experts are saying that we'll achieve the singularity within 5 years.
Yep.
And, so if they have achieved the singularity, that probably goes a long way to why they've survived. I would think. I know I've talked to Paul about this so many times. Does artificial intelligence scare you? No.
Why not?
Because I don't think. I think we can always pull the plug on it, basically. If it gets out of hand, but I don't know. Maybe it'll get out of hand and we'll miss the opportunity to pull the plug. But look at my business I'm in the visual effects business, and AI is taken over, and you have to embrace it. Where did you go? Oh, there you are.
No, I'm here. You're
okay,
here.
Good. Okay, good. You have to embrace it. And I think that, civilizations will embrace it and hopefully put it to good use. But it also, I don't know, Jimmy, maybe I'm just an optimist, but clearly in the wrong hands, you could see it doing horrible, horrible things. But so far, it's been a help, except for losing jobs.
The way, okay. One of the things that freaks me out, and it branches out in both directions very quickly on this, but fundamentally, the writers' strike and the Screen Actors Guild and the strikes that we had here in LA, you're part of that industry and you watched all of that closely. So did I. One of the points that was brought up was AI and creativity, and being paid for that. And I was watching this argument on Reddit, and somebody said, and it was a TV show that I had just watched, and they bring up this specific episode on this TV series where the actor, A-list actor, okay, there's a dozen male actors here in Hollywood at that level. This is one of them. Was AI generated and was not compensated for this scene. And I went, wait a minute. That wasn't AI. So I go back and I watch the episode, specifically the scene that they were talking about that had to get reshot, and they redid it with an AI version of this actor. And I watched the scene. Joel, I didn't know.
Yeah, I know.
That's the concern. Right there. I watched the show. I didn't know it was AI. And I didn't find out until 6 months later, until this strike is going on and they bring this up, and then I go back. Now I understand exactly what they're talking about. Should that actor be paid for that scene?
Yes.
They didn't have to do the set. They didn't have catering. They didn't have cameramen, right? They didn't have any of that, right? And so I understand the convenience of it, but it's still the actor in the shot. Now we go one step further. When can that be used against us? When does AI start to write its own code and decides when to create a piece of media to mislead the public, and you don't have control over it? That's the part that scares me, where you won't know the difference. I didn't.
Well, it depends who's driving that. If singularity
is achieved,
okay,
and it's AI doing this on its own, that's the danger.
Yeah, if that's what you mean by singularity. I thought singularity just meant that you were now living forever in some form. You were no longer biologically bound.
Okay, that's another definition of singularity. And the other version of that is the point of no return, when artificial general intelligence is achieved by AI. And from that moment forward, AI is now better than us.
You mean when it becomes sentient?
Yeah.
Well,
sentience is self-aware, but certainly average general intelligence. It's able to think like a human, an average human. And at that point, it can, with the speed of a computer, it can outthink, even though it's AGI, it's average general intelligence. It can do the work of 1,000 years in minutes of an average human. And that's the part that, and like I said, I had to go back. Even when I rewatched this episode, I still didn't I still didn't know that was AI. I didn't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's so good you can't tell anymore. Used to be you always could, but you can't. This is very true. I guess it's really sort of boils down to how creative can AI actually be. I mean, so far it's just regurgitating stuff that's already out there. It doesn't have the ability to have a light bulb go off in it. That's when I would get worried.
What about your job? I mean, could ChatGPT and the tools and the inserts going into that, the applications being inserted into it, and different versions of AI, put somebody like yourself, I mean, completely out of business, where you're just going to write a couple of desires, a couple of intentions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it could.
Predator walks out of the jungle, right? Okay. And then the scene is generated, and that's it. It's software doing it, and not Joel Hynek.
Yeah, this is entirely seems like it could happen. It probably will happen, where studio executives themselves sitting at their desk are, make a scene where this happens, and by this, and the predator, and etc. And boom, there you go. I mean, I know of some executives who, weren't getting what they wanted from the visual effects company, and so they looked to AI to get it for them, and they finished the shots themselves right on their own desktop, rather than a multi-million-dollar visual effects company. It's a little scary.
You know who I feel bad for? Screenwriters. The AI generation part of it, of visually what you're seeing in media, that's scary. The creation of music right now is unbelievably scary. How good it is, and it's good. It's not bad. It's good. But the thought of myself typing in, going, okay, I need a screenplay, 120 pages, in the style of Steven Spielberg meets The Godfather Part 2, alien invasion, Earth wins, right? Boom. And in the morning, and so AI is able to look at every single screenplay ever written in the history of Hollywood, right? Everyone. And get the best of all of it, and then come up with a new storyline. And when I wake up in the morning, I've got 120 pages done. And then you take that and you flip that over into making a movie, where somebody like me that has no talent, I'm able to pump in some instructions, right?
Yeah.
And to go from phase to phase to phase to phase and have this all created. What's the use of having Paramount Studios at that point?
Well, I mean, I feel this very strongly. My daughter's a screenwriter. She wrote, the live action version of Mulan and Spellbound, and she's very concerned about it. I keep saying, Lauren, why don't you embrace AI, use it. And the notion, I mean, most writers feel that, well, anything that AI generates is just going to be mediocre. It's just going to be a rehash of what's already out there. But of course, that is kind of what's happening anyway. By us humans are doing just a lot of rehashing anyway. It's very rare that you get some new original thinking and new original ideas. So yeah, I'm sure AI is going to be generating, streaming stuff that, of our favorite characters. I bet it will, but it's so far anyway, I don't think going to be anything beyond mediocre.
Well, Chris, who runs one of the Jimmy Church fan sites, right? Okay. I don't run it. He does. But he sent this treatment to me. So I don't know who he used for this. So I'll just say ChatGPT. I don't know for sure. But anyway, he goes, Jimmy, check this screenplay out. I said, okay. He said, all I did was say, I need a good movie with Jimmy Church and Richard Dolan. Right. And I got to tell you, man, I read
Good.
through that. Yeah, I got to say, pretty
You like?
creative.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Well,
with those simple instructions for AI to pull out, I'm not Will Smith famous. I'm not naive, but in our community, I am who I am. I'm also not naive. I understand my position in this community. AI to pull out the details of myself, my take, my philosophy, the show, my job, the name, all of that was completely from my mindset. I was very impressed with it. And it did the same thing with Richard Dolan, and the two characters, the way that they were laid out, it was Richard and I.
wow.
And this whole alien invasion thing and how it involved Fade to Black and Richard and his writing and it was great.
Wow. I mean, I do know a showrunner who's using AI, but what he does is he writes sort of the outline. He writes the first act, and he writes the ending, and then he lets AI fill in all the middle of it, and it's actually working for him. But he's still the originator of the basic scheme.
Do you, in the interest of transparency, should one disclose that AI assisted in your creative process, or do you keep that to yourself?
So far, many people are keeping it to themselves. I know, for instance, that in Alien Romulus, the character who played the robot that gets cut in half, that was AI generated, but they didn't call it that. They called it machine learning, and they're still referring to work like that as machine learning, not AI, as they still feel there's a stigma against it. And I mean, I think there's some rule basically that, and they had, of course, they had the rights to the material, so that was not an issue. And I think generally speaking, if 80% of the image is human created, you don't need to worry about the last 20% having coming from, the general world knowledge. So that's the guideline that I think is being used these days. But yeah,
it's such a fascinating time. AI came on so fast, and different researchers and different people out there over the years. Of course, Kurzweil's easy to bring up, but there were so many. He wasn't the only one. And we were warned. I just felt that, and I still feel that we got way ahead of our skis. It just money freaks people out. And suddenly this money train with AI, we're just talking about it, trillions and trillions of dollars, and how this has played out, where NVIDIA, made video cards, right? Who cared about NVIDIA? Now it's one of the biggest companies in the world, like overnight.
Yeah.
It's a pretty scary prospect. And there's another take on this before we wrap up tonight. Since 2017, when everything started to take off, with where we are today, what have we learned in the last 8 years on the UFO subject as a planet?
Well, I think we've learned that the government is being a lot more cooperative than they used to be. And it's certainly much more acceptable to look into the UFO subject, to research it, to know people who see UFOs. It's becoming more part of our cultural fabric. I would like to hope that we've learned to keep an open mind more than we used to. And we used to just write off. Pilot sees a UFO, he's nuts. Now, pilot sees a UFO, okay, but we got to worry about his safety. So that's progress, I think, that's being made in the UFO world.
But why? I think the important question is why. Why is the government suddenly our friend?
Either they're really concerned about safety. I know they used to think that security was not an issue at all, but for some reason now they do. I guess because maybe these actual pilots have made such a fuss about it that it's clear that it is a threat to their safety, or goes back to our original script that they're just getting us used to the idea of an alien intelligence.
Because it's not in their control anymore?
Yeah. I mean, I guess they think I guess that would be the logical conclusion. They can't keep it quiet anymore. So let's gradually disclose it.
When we look at something that I think in the end has been historically significant, and I'm talking about the work of Steven Spielberg and specifically Close Encounters of the Third Kind, where that is a movie about the government's knowledge of ET on every aspect, from flight, Fort Lauderdale, Flight 19, Serpo, whatever these subjects are, alien abductions, and everybody coming off the craft at the end. The fact that the government knew that this encounter was going to happen at Devil's Tower, and this trade was going to happen between our two planets or two species. That's what that is suggesting. And that the government knows something, but it appears that something like that is now possible that the government is aware of, and it's not in their control. So right now, drip, drip, drip in this conversation of disclosure has to happen, because surprising the planet would freak everybody out.
Yeah.
Which I think is the message of Close Encounters.
I agree. And that, it's a for real deal. I was surprised that Spielberg knew so much about it, frankly, in the book. I mean, in the movie. I thought it was very well done.
Well, people are not stupid. And if you look at, and I'm not making a joke of this, but if you look at the body of work that Spielberg has done, Indiana Jones and Jaws and whatever, but most of his stuff is E.T. Most of his stuff is E.T., if you think about it. And he's making another disclosure movie right now.
Right.
Which is being shot. And so people are going to naturally ask and come to that conclusion. Okay, Steve, what's up, bro?
Yeah, right.
What do you know? Have you been read in?
I get the feeling he has.
Yes.
I think he's
what other conclusion?
He's part of the project, One would assume.
And which takes us to the next level of where we're at right now with these whistleblowers coming forward with some pretty fantastical claims, things that I think we've always wanted people to say. We wanted somebody to sit up in front of Congress and swear in a stack of Bibles that we have flying saucers in a warehouse at Wright Pat, right? We wanted that. Well, we got it. Yeah.
But only part way. I honestly don't know what to make of them. It's hard to imagine that they're all bullshitting. I think they believe it, what they're saying. Whether it's some kind of psychic gathering in their mind from some source, or hypnosis, or they really did see it. I don't know. I mean, I know my father certainly in his course, his trajectory, came to value the consciousness, as he called it, aspect of the UFO phenomenon, the psychic aspect of it. And I know Jacques Vallée sort of, I mean, that's why they wrote that Edge of Reality, the book together. So who knows really why, what these whistleblowers, actually have seen. I think they're believe what they're saying, but we don't have the proof.
You know what didn't happen? The public didn't freak out. That's the part where I'm fascinated with the reaction. The public didn't freak out. Neither did the media. You've got somebody, you got somebody good. Yeah, man, we got the pilots. We got bodies on ice. We've got the biologics. We've got the craft. We're reverse engineering. We've got the address. It's like, holy shit, right? It's like the craziest thing that you could say. And it was just like, it was like Tuesday.
Yeah. Right.
Nobody reacted.
Yeah. And Congress is saying, tell us more. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And I really, I look back historically, not only with your father, but we brought up James McDonald, Donald Kehoe, Stanton Friedman, so many important people in the subject that are no longer with us that would really enjoy what we are going through today. And, and they're not here.
So would my dad.
Yeah. Your dad deserves to be able to go, he deserves it.
He does. Yeah.
And James McDonald, Donald Kehoe, man, and you think about talk about fighting the good fight, right? And those guys were up against it. Not to say that we're not up against it now, but it was a different environment back then that those guys were mixed up in, including your father, at the very highest levels to go down what happened in Boulder and Condon and the absolute mudslinging and things that were said that came out of that, all because of a cover-up. It's just wrong, and so those guys and men and women, I should say, deserve and they must be smiling from up on high right now.
Yes, I hope so. Yeah.
What are you working on now? Are you working on a cool film that you can tell us about?
No, I mean, I might be working on a cool film that I can't tell you about, but hasn't come together yet. It's not greenlit yet. So, I mean, right now, so many people in the film business are out of work. It's not a pleasant scene, but supposedly this year it'll kick back up. But I'm wondering if AI is going to step in and not let that happen.
Yeah, all of my friends in the industry. I think my lucky stars that I do a talk show on television, right? But anything else, and I make documentary films. That's different. But all of my friends out there in production, and I talk to them all the time. We're friends, right? Have told me since COVID, the last 5 years, since 2020, it has been brutal for work.
Yeah, and particularly since the writers strike. That's something.
Strike.
Really.
The rest of the country that are listening to this show and around the world, they don't understand where you and I live. Where you and I live, everybody is one way or another connected to the industry.
Yeah.
That's it. It doesn't matter. 6 degrees of separation. No, it's 1 degree of separation.
Pretty much. Yes.
And it's feast or famine out here. And right now there's a big question mark over everything. I mean, there's still work getting done. I'm not saying that, but it's not the same. It's certainly not the same.
Yeah.
Well, I'll see you out there. I'll see you at Contact in the Desert.
Okay,
I assume. Right?
I hope so.
You're going to be there.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Can I pull you up on stage this year again?
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Please do.
That was so much fun getting you up there. You're like, what am I even doing standing up here?
Yeah, I know. But
That was great.
I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah, you're blushing now. Okay, I'm bringing you up on stage.
Okay.
Hey, Joel.
Okay.
All the best, man, to you and your family. Thank you so much, my friend. Great show.
Thank you too. Okay. Thank you.
The absolute
Pleasure.
very
My
best.
pleasure. Okay.
Joel Hynek, everybody, and come out to Contact in the Desert and say hi to Joel and come up and find me, and I'll make the introduction. And his brother Paul will, of course, be there too as well. So there you go. What am I doing? What am I doing tomorrow night? What is tomorrow? Man, see what I have to do here. Tomorrow night is, Paul Blacksmith is with us. We're going to be talking about Nixon and Eisenhower and ET contact. But for now, all I've got is Gobekli Tepe. Fade to Black is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Newman, and Michelle Freed. Special thanks to Bill, John, Dex, Jessica, Dennis, and Kevin. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro, Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2024 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network, Inc. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Gobekli Tepe.